Diary of a Fund Manager, number 335, 14th June 2021. Dispatches from the front line. In this week's diary, news from multiple front lines: health, technology and geopolitics. All have the potential to move markets, but aren't at the moment. Why is this? The spring, now early summer rally continued last week, despite some worrying news. Equities, bonds and the US dollar all ended higher, with Europe in the lead. Gold drifted lower and other commodities rotated around as they do, but with no clear trend apparent. The COVID frontline quite rightly continues to generate huge interest, even though it no longer seems to have the power to move markets. Infection rates in India are reported to be 75% below the peak of a month ago, with the vaccination campaign once again gathering pace after a temporary lull. On 4th June alone, over 5 million doses were administered, which is equivalent to the population of New Zealand. Globally, 2.2 billion people, or over 25% of the total population, have now received a jab, which is cause for celebration, but not if you live somewhere other than in the 10 countries that account for 80% of injections. Only 2% of those living in Africa have been vaccinated. Although the G7 attendees might wish otherwise, the biggest news of the week came from the IoT, Internet of Things. Full marks to the FBI for ensnaring 800 suspected criminals in a dozen countries by using a dark web app of their own design. Elsewhere, those who hacked into the Colonial Pipeline operation, which carries 3 million barrels of fuel a day from Texas to New York, lost the multi-million-dollar ransom payoff when their Bitcoin wallet was tracked down by the authorities and closed. The arms race between the forces of good and evil continues to escalate, with both sides using increasingly sophisticated weapons. Closer to home, problems at Fastly, which provides cloud computing services to many, including CNN and The Guardian, closed the internet to the inconvenience of all, and shock horror for consumers everywhere, even Amazon succumbed for an hour. Our complicated world is increasingly fragile. Taking a turn to geopolitics, those that think about such grand matters are increasingly worried about Taiwan, which is the source of 50% of global semiconductor exports. In summary, China is interested and the US is worried. The latter is investing huge amounts to ramp up onshore expertise and production just in case. Chips are the new oil when it comes to strategic importance, with the East China Sea taking over from the Persian Gulf as the most analysed bit of water. The other and more conventional geopolitical concern is what Russia will do next along its European border. Back in the 1940s, US diplomat George Kennan advocated the maintenance of a buffer between the Soviet Union and the Western Front line, including the recently formed West German border. NATO would only be mobilised if the USSR crossed the Iron Curtain. This idea helped keep the peace during the Cold War, but was then forgotten after 1989 when capitalism triumphed over communism. Now NATO has 30 members, including Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, all of whom will expect to be protected if Russia goes on manoeuvres in their countries. The recent Belarus incident was the latest test of Western resolve. The European Union's response reminded me of Denis Healey's description of debating with Margaret Thatcher's first Chancellor of the Exchequer, Geoffrey Howe. It's like being savaged by a dead sheep. And before I forget, the news last week that didn't seem to matter to investment markets was, once again, about inflation. US core inflation is now running at 4.5% if price rises in the first 5 months of the year are annualised. Economists continue to debate the risk, but investors continue to invest. The gulf between the two is widening, a trend that, I suspect, will continue for some months to come until events determine the winner. The dangerous front lines that surround the stable core of life as normal, business as usual, and investment are too numerous to mention, but health, technology and politics provide a good starting point. All need to be monitored, but only on occasion do they move markets. For now, what matters is that the lights of the global economy are on, and increasingly not everyone is at home. The worry list is for another day.